And good evening. We are recording our latest episode of MASKast 76, which is episode 60, entitled Venice Menace. It's been a little while, but we wanted to tell you we're still around. We're still cranking them out as best we can.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we're invited here towards the end of last year, 2020, closing it out, if you will, with Bill Ferris. He invited us on to talk about um, kind of our best and worst episodes of Mask thus far. And that's exactly what we said. Thus far, we've only gotten to 59, episode 59 of the whole series.
Right.
He gave us our 2 cents, or his 2 cents rather, of the racing series. And
yeah, one of his worst was part of the one of his worst was part of the racing series.
Yeah, and as painstakingly as Jason says, I would still like to at least visit it and see what it's like. I will probably think the same, but I'd like to at least give it a try and say, yes, I endured it.
Oh, gosh. We made it this far. We've got to watch the whole thing. So
that's it.
Yeah, there's no turning back. So how you been doing, man? Been hanging in there?
Hanging in there, busy with everything like always. The house is coming along and kids are healthy, thankfully. And
good.
How's things with you?
About the same, trucking along. Everybody stayed healthy through this whole mess, and hopefully will. And yeah, just cranking along best we can, during this craziness, and trying not to do too much, but trying not to go stir crazy either. It's a tough balance, let me tell you, between
real fine line,
mental health and physical health.
That's it. I'm getting stir crazy. If some of you haven't already known, my latest endeavor is to recreate our AM booth from the radio station that Jason and I worked at. I've been stir crazy the last couple of months because I'm having my house built on, an extension built on the house, and I can't get to my shed now, and that's where I would put the studio. So I've been like, come on, I could be working on this thing. I could be, I don't know, something. I could be building or at least playing with all the electronics I bought, something. So
well, it won't be too long. Hopefully you get that finished up, get your studio set up, and play around with it.
Then you won't have a mimicked background. I don't know if it's readily available here.
Oh yeah, the one that you created yourself, the booth.
Yep, I gotta find it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, that was a room that will be forever ingrained in our brains. That little AM booth and the board that Wyatt has and the cart machines that Wyatt has, and you've pretty much almost recollected the whole thing.
I have. I've almost got all of it pretty well put together. I think I'm missing like the turntables.
Yeah.
I have found the turntables on occasion, and they are quite expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, they were no joke, man. They were legit. Yeah. And we always had Kenny G's silhouette, I think, was
That's what it was. I just actually acquired not the record, but I just bought the MP3 here a couple months ago.
So anytime there was something that went wrong with one of the carts, or the show lagged, or there was technical difficulties, whatever, we had a technical difficulties cart. But if the cart machines weren't working, we always had a record set up on the turntable, which had just happened to be Kenny G's 45 of the silhouette, I think. And you would crank that up if all hell broke loose, Always a backup plan.
That was it. I
just
found it.
Yeah, you got it up there. I see it. You got the
nope, that's not the.
That's the front of the.
That's the board front of the album.
No, I got it up. Yeah, I see it. I see the board and the cart machines and The
No,
time clock?
I'm talking about the audio.
Oh. Yeah, you probably have to screen share it or something to get it up. But anyway.
Yeah, so we would have that, or the technical difficulties, like Jason said. We've actually aired that um, quite a bit, especially on our Memory Jogger podcast.
Yeah.
We had that going.
Yeah, that was great. Very fun episode. Interviewed our old boss and mentor, and it was a really good time to do that.
It's not
But you,
pumping through.
I see
Oh, there it
you
is.
moving around there.
It's muting itself for some reason.
That's all right.
Yep. So go over to Memory Jogger, especially episode 10. I played it a couple times over there on that. But yeah, so you hear that, or we, like Jason said, you'd switch back and forth between silhouette and technical difficulties, because that cart, the technical difficulties was on a cart much like this,
Mm-hmm.
and it sat for 3.5 minutes ballpark.
I'm seeing your notes now, dude. Don't see you.
Don't see me. Oh, it's because it's on screen share again. I didn't turn it off.
Yeah, you're giving everybody a look at your notes.
Yeah.
You gotta keep them secret. Keep them safe.
Like I said, this is the cart that we had. Oh, it's graying out. Okay, let's see if that works. There.
Yeah.
So we had this type of cart, and that's where our music, or rather our technical difficulties sat.
Yeah.
We see if the blue one shows up. We didn't have the blue ones. That's better. We didn't have the blue ones there, but
yeah, it was clarified 8-track.
Then I got
short run 8-track.
Then I just got this big old beast here. You can see on the size and what difference, what these guys went for.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
that's awesome.
Our show and tell is.
I got a little show and tell to do.
Yes, you do.
In our Get Our Mask On segment. So, anyway, are you ready to start the show? Ready to start the podcast?
Let's start it up.
All right, here we go, people. Episode 76 of MASKast is here, featuring another review of the Mobile Armored Strike Command animated series from 1985. Coming up, we will take a look at episode number 60, Venice Menace, which will include our play-by-play commentary mixed with audio clips from the actual episode. When we reach the dramatic halfway point and the conclusion of the episode, we will pause to give our impressions and our verdict using our 1 to 5 scale MASK-O-meter. Then we will turn it over to you, the listener, and announce the results of our online poll. Also read back your reviews posted at agentsofmask.com. If you would like to contribute to these review podcasts, it's easy. Just go to our website, agentsofmask.com, look in the right-hand column there for the MASKast assignment, and just click on that picture. You'll be taken right to the review post, and the embedded video from YouTube will be there, and also our poll, and of course our comment section for you to leave a review. Venice Menace was originally broadcast on December 20th, 1985 in the United States, and features Venom learning of the location of Cleopatra's long-lost ship of gold. Mayhem uses a special machine to turn actually, it's not a machine. He has some liquid that turns the surrounding waters to jelly, which allows Bruno, Shepard, and his Stinger, or Scorpion, in the show, to transverse and dig it up. And it's up to Mask to stop the evil plan of Mayhem and taking off with this ship of gold. I'm Jason, one of your hosts of MASKast. With me, as always, is my longtime friend, fellow co-host, the Mighty Man to my Yukk, Wyatt. Is that shrinking machine still working?
No clue again.
You don't remember Mighty Man and Yukk? Okay.
No.
I got to do a little plug for myself. Over there on the retronetwork.com, I recently did an article on Mr. Peter Cullen and Frank Welker and all the times that they teamed up and were actually in an episode of a show together. And one of them, I might be the earliest one, that they were on a show together was a show called Mighty Man and Yukk. And basically, it was this guy, his name was Brandon Brewster, who was voiced by Peter Cullen. He was a millionaire. He used a shrinking machine to become this like flying superhero. Okay. And he was known as Mighty Man. His partner was this dog, the world's ugliest dog. His name was Yukk. He was voiced by Frank Welker, of course. And he can basically destroy anything by the sight of his face. And he wore this doghouse over his head, and he would like remove it. And then if you looked at him, you were like dead, you know, like Medusa or something, turning people to stone. But it aired in 1979 to 1980 during the Plastic Man comedy adventure show. And it was Ruby Spears that produced it. Just 32 short episodes, which are actually now over on YouTube. So I vaguely remember the show. I remember Plastic Man. And when I saw Yukk, which is, if you Google it, Wyatt, Y-U-K-K, when I saw him, I remembered that character. Yep. But I don't remember really anything about the adventures or the show in particular, just that character. And I didn't, had no idea that was Cullen and Welker together doing that show. And I think I found in the article 28 times that they had appeared essentially in the same episode, or were kind of in the same episode, where there was maybe a short segment that Welker was in and a short segment that Cullen was in, and weren't necessarily interacting with each other. But it was very fun to put together. I'd always wanted to do it, and was basically surprised about how many times that they essentially worked together over the years outside of Transformers. That was the whole goal, because everybody knows them for, Optimus Prime and Megatron, and I wanted to see what else beyond that they were essentially together. So cheap plug for that over on the retronetwork.com. I think I called it Cullen and Welker Beyond Transformers, something like that, if you want to look that up. But yeah, so yes, I'm digging.
I see. Well, I did a Google here just to see, and I remember, like you said, I vaguely remember that. I just don't remember any episodes about it. So.
Yeah. There are some cartoons in there in that article that I had no recollection of, and some that I had forgotten about. And, oh yeah, okay, so they were in that together. But it was really fun just kind of digging through their IMDb profiles essentially, and doing a comparison side by side to what shows that they were in, and just legends of voice acting.
Right.
So, which we as we transition here, we'll get on to one of the other legends of voice acting that we lost recently. But as we continue, let's get our mask on. So what I was alluding to, and if you are, part of the M.A.S.K community and been subscribed to the show for a while, you probably follow us on social media. And even on the website, I posted a little tribute to Brendan McKane that we lost. Very young, in my opinion, and he had been battling cancer. Of course, Sharon, his wife, Sharon Noble, who was also on the M.A.S.K series, had reached out to the community about helping with some hospital bills, and the M.A.S.K community stepped up and actually funded her over on GoFundMe. And then we got the sad news. When was it, Wyatt? Was it right at the end of the year?
Right at
I think
the 29th or 30th, something like that.
Right at the end of 2020.
And yeah.
So wanted to invite everybody, in case you have not seen us over there on Behind the Mask on Bill's show, go out to the website, and you can actually go over to YouTube, our YouTube channel, and watch the little tribute video. It's basically the interview that we did with Sharon and Brendan back in 2015, if you can believe that, right after we met Doug at RetroCon. It was like a whirlwind there, where we got to meet Doug, and then we interviewed Sharon and Brendan like a month later. And I put that together with visuals. So as we're talking to them, and as they're mentioning things, I'm pulling up some photos that I found on the web and actually through Doug that he's posted on his Facebook page, and as kind of like a tribute to him. But yeah, it was a very sad way to end 2020 and losing one of our beloved voice actors from the show.
Right.
One other thing I wanted to pass along that I don't even think I've shown you, Wyatt. Around Christmas time, one of my friends over on the Retro Network sent me a couple items. We've got this item, which is a M.A.S.K coloring book.
Oh, nice.
Actually, 2 M.A.S.K coloring books.
Very nice.
These are vintage, of course. 1986, I think, is the copyright on these. And they were actually his childhood coloring books, like from his own personal stash. And there are a few of the places in here he colored in. I don't know why Scott is a Smurf on that page, but there are some fun pages in here, some fun art, character art and stuff. And this one, that's a big coloring book. And then we got the giant coloring book, which has a few more pages in there, but still some great. I think these are based around a couple episodes, actually, as I'm looking through there. The Plant Show, maybe, I think, is one where they got the seeds. Well, they call it the invasion of the giant plants, if you can see that.
Yeah.
But you've got some fun little, at the beginning, there's some, like, you can see here, profiles of the agents. And I don't know if I can try to scan some of these that aren't drawn on and put up on our page or something. Maybe I can try to do that, and people can have fun with them, work in Photoshop and color them in and whatever you want to do with them. Right. So that was kind of an unexpected thing that I haven't really been adding a lot to my M.A.S.K collection. I've been selling off a lot of my stuff. Well, not a lot, some of my stuff, just to make a little cash here and there. And I hadn't been looking out for getting those coloring books. So I thought that was fun, and got 2 coloring books to add to my M.A.S.K collection now.
Nice.
So what else been going on with you? Anything?
Not
as far
too
as in the
much
M.A.S.K
related, except for our sit down with Bill Ferris over at MASKast.com. We did get on there. Season 5, episode 2, I think is what I saw, is where we sat down with him. And a good 20 minutes or so is our own personal memorial, if you will, for Brendan McKane. And just, go out there if you want to and see what he meant to each of us. Really, for me, I mean, maybe I'm getting more emotional as I get older, but I shared that I did shed a little tear, really, because he was someone that we talked to. He was something from our past, a childhood memory. He helped us. I shared this with Doug at one point because this was offline after our interview back in 2015. I think even shortly after our visit there in 2015 when we went to RetroCon. Just he was mentioning something to me about how all of the voice actors tried to point into emphasis that they're talking to kids. They have this is a children's show, so they have to be mindful how they portray their characters. And I don't know what we were saying or how we said it. And I said, you helped me through a difficult time. My parents were around that time frame divorcing, and I, sometimes we recluse into some kind of world, we'll call it. That was my world, was, M.A.S.K, Transformers, pretty much anything 80s, but M.A.S.K, Transformers, Airwolf, talking, I was more immersed than before. And being able to see those people or to talk with Brendan McKane and Sharon Noble and spend, an hour or so with Sharon talking about how to write a novel, really.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 hours in all that we talked to them.
Right. So it was, I don't know how to really describe it, except that you see people on Twitter. A lot of people interact with stars and celebs on Twitter and maybe Facebook, uh, and so forth. And it's now a different world. Back then, we didn't even think we'd ever see, hear nothing.
We didn't know who they were. Yeah.
Pretty much we didn't.
Yeah.
Fast forward, here we are. We got the technology. We can sit there and like Bill Ferris even said, he views Doug Stone as a close friend because they talk a lot about hockey. That's something that they sync up with, and they just jab each other or talk about who's playing what. But even though it was a casual thing and a little interview, just like anybody in the big talk shows has an interview with someone, it still resounded quite a bit to me. And then losing him, and then seeing the post that Sharon wrote. I mean, I was heartbroken by how broken she was. Then we lost the voice as well, and it did impact me. I know it impacted you as well, but I know I was not a happy camper that day, and I was shedding a small tear in the car because of it.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it was heartbreaking, and but again, we'll just plug to go over to that episode of Behind the Mask on the Matt Tracker YouTube channel, and watch that episode. We did talk a little bit more happier stuff too.
Yes,
we went
did.
through our best and worst episodes of the series, as you were saying pre-show, up until that point, because we haven't reviewed the entire series yet. But I had to break out the Stone Trees and the Panda Power, and let's see, I'm trying to remember which one you picked, Wyatt.
You got me on the spot. I don't remember.
I do got you on the spot. Bill picked one from the racing series where they were trying to rescue some people that were enslaved and decided to have a race. Yeah. So we'll eventually get to that episode, but we did share some pretty good ones though too, and that was just a fun conversation to have. One that I hope to revisit, after we've reviewed the entire series and we can really dig in and do like a top 5 list or a worst 5 list. And hopefully someday we'll get to do that. We're not too far away from finishing the entire series. So one other little plug for Bill is, I'm not sure if you watched it yet, Wyatt, but he did get Mark Halloran to jump on Zoom with him and did an interview on Behind the Mask, and that was really fun. I had not seen an interview with Mark before. I know we had tried to reach out and get him on the show about that time when, or a little bit after, when we got Brendan and Sharon on the phone, and just never panned out, but was glad that Bill got the chance to interview him, so I will plug that. And was fun to hear. I hear a little bit of Sly Rax when he talks, so it was it's always neat to pull that out and you hear little bits, and okay, I can hear Sly, and I can hear Cliff Dagger, and he did a lot of those fun characters, the bad guys mainly, but he was on both sides. I think he was Buddy Hawks too, and can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but anyway. Go over there. Bill's cranking out episodes all the time, and he's got the Talking Overtime too with Mr. Kira Whack there.
Yep. So
that's really a great place to be on a week-to-week basis, really, as he's releasing episodes, and you're waiting for ours. So
that's right.
So, anything else in the MASK community you want to pass along?
No.
Okay.
I think we're finally ready to start the MASKast. We cut right into a boat speeding across Venice with Jacques Lafleur commenting to Matt that Venice is different from Canada, as we see Scott shouting to that they are slow while he's scooting on T-Bob's water ski mode. Just as T-Bob says full speed ahead, they abruptly hit something, which has Scott flinging off just like, Rax on Piranha.
Yeah.
Scott asks what's wrong with him while he replies that he's stuck. Matt and Jacques pull up to get Scott out of the water, and Jacques believes that T-Bob's hit some kind of sandbar, while Matt corrects him, saying that the water is way too deep. Scott responds that T-Bob's playing one of his foolish jokes. Jacques attempts to pull him out, then Matt joins in. As they surface, T-Bob believes he's been eaten by a large jellyfish. Matt pulls out his buck knife while advising him that it's not a jellyfish, rather, while commenting that it's interesting. T-Bob replies that it'll be more interesting if it'll let him go. Of course, Matt cuts a sample while commenting that it's like jelly, yet dense and strong. Then we cut to everyone in the boat, along with the jelly blob, as Matt discusses that he'd like to analyze it. Well, doesn't he analyze everything?
Yeah, true. You've got the computer to do it in your car.
That's right. T-Bob would rather throw it overboard and forget about it, as Scott grins. As the duo are next to the volcano van, Scott states that they need to analyze anything suspicious, adding that Matt's sources say that Venom might be operating in the area. Well, obviously, that's why they're in Venice.
Right.
T-Bob quips that if Venom's operating, the patient is in trouble. Haha.
And it begins.
Yep. Then they close the doors up to the volcano van, which is kind of pretty decent with the graphics.
Uh-huh.
And they drive on over to Thunderhawk.
Oh, yes. And so they get out and unload the jelly, but it's actually gone, melted or disintegrated, whatever. Nearby, a crane is on a bridge, which is fishing out a stuck gondola now. And it's stuck with jelly in the water. And the crowd is gasping, watching this guy trying to pull it out. Matt asks for a jar to get a sample. And T-Bob pulls one out of his belly compartment there pretty handily. Jacques cuts off a piece, puts it in the jar, hands it to Matt. The jelly comes loose from the gondola, splashing into the water and soaking everybody in the crowd. T-Bob jokes that was more than one drop in a bucket. The crane operator tries to grab the jelly, but it's gone now. And Matt notices that the sample in the jar is also gone. And T-Bob jokes that it couldn't have gotten out. The lid was a jar. The lid wasn't a jar.
That's what I actually laughed at.
No, at this point, I was rolling my eyes and I was like, not one of these episodes, please, not one of these episodes with all the jokes. And that didn't turn out to be the case. As they kept on punning it up. Anyway, we cut now to a rundown building. We get some ominous music that we recognize. And inside are Mayhem and Vanessa and Rax and Bruno. Mayhem slams his hand on this drum, and tells Rax and Bruno, "You idiots, the drum is leaking. You could have left a trail right to our hideout." Well, Bruno says they didn't notice. Vanessa chimes in that they would notice if their heads were leaking. And Rax tells him that they couldn't notice because the drum was covered as they were trying to smuggle it in. Vanessa asks Rax if he suddenly went Venetian blind. And he says it wasn't much. It was just a couple drops. Well, Mayhem tells him he knew that it was a super concentrated formula. And Vanessa now kind of demonstrates that one drop can affect 10 cubic feet of water. And she takes whatever little residue that was on her fingertips from the leakage of the drum and stirs into a nearby bowl, and the water turns into jelly, and she holds it upside down, kind of like at the Dairy Queen when they turn your Blizzard upside down, you know. And then let's see. Mayhem then says that they're lucky the effect is temporary, and now he's looking at the window that nobody followed them back. They didn't follow their trail, and they'll proceed as planned. And so now we cut back to Thunderhawk and the onboard computer there.
Right. Well, it's stating that the analysis is water with pollutants. Well, I could have told you that. T-Bob was perplexed that the water in the jar is just water in a jar. The pollutants were common to the pollutants in the canal and are impossible to isolate. And I thought that was kind of perplexing because the computer's pretty good about
Right.
everything else. Why couldn't
It's
you figure that
usually omniscient. Yeah.
Anyway, so Matt states that they'll continue to look using the computer library while turning to the duo, suggesting that they could go sightseeing. Scott states that they could rent a boat while that puts the wind in T-Bob's sails. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
T-Bob is up on the stern of the boat, wanting to steer the boat, but doesn't know where the engine is. Scott educates T-Bob that there's no motor, it's a gondola. He tells him that it uses a big stick to push it. T-Bob then states that he's got it. He knows all about this boat stuff. As they push out, T-Bob states that the stick is stuck, and the gondola leaves, yeah, while he's basically stuck as a flag on the pole. T-Bob asks Scott to come back, while Scott replies that he can't since T-Bob is driving. T-Bob then tells him not to be such a stick in the mud, and then falls into the water as Scott continues to sail down the canal. We then see T-Bob resurface, and he quickly runs up to a bridge, then tells Scott that he's got a new stick. Mind if he drops in? Scott shouts, "Don't jump," but obviously he doesn't listen. He jumps in, which launches Scott again, like Rax, out of the boat, but he comes right back in, just kind of like a seesaw gag, and it ejects T-Bob now, who then places his stick between two light posts, pulls off a gymnast's spin, then lands it in the water next to Scott. As he surfaces, he states that this gondola stuff is trickier than he thought.
And we could have cut that whole scene out.
We could have probably done that.
God.
We could have, but I see why it's there later on.
Yeah, it was a little too long for me, but anyway.
So we cut to Venom as Miles is handing Rax a map. He reminds him that Venice did not exist when the map was drawn. Rax replies, I know. I can't do the raspy voice, sorry. Then Miles adds that he'll need to triangulate from geometric features, and as Rax gets in, Miles adds that he'll need to use his head for something other than bowling.
That was funny. Yep. I laughed at that one.
Rax then tells Mayhem to relax since he knows what to do. While under the water, Rax states that the water is so murky that he can't tell where he is. He then states that he should surface carefully. Then we see a reflection of the water is in his sunglasses. And I noticed that with Vanessa earlier.
Mm-hmm.
As she's, babbling at her or jabbing at him, you see her in the reflection of the sunglasses. I actually thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, they do it one more time, too, in the second half.
Yep. And then we are back to our duo.
Right. And Scott ties T-Bob up now because he's being overboard more than he is on board. And as a gondolier, he'll make a good anchor as he's all tied up now. So T-Bob says he's got it all straight, though, and he runs down the rules of being a gondolier, and he says there's no way he's going to fall out now. Well, just then, Piranha surfaces underneath their gondola and knocks T-Bob back into the water, of course. T-Bob identifies Piranha right away, and he doesn't mean the fish. He means Venom's Piranha.
Right.
Rax says he hit somebody's boat, and he better clear out. So Piranha dives down now, but he catches the rope that T-Bob was tied up in, which is now kind of dangling around the gondola, and he starts dragging it. And T-Bob says they are getting strung out here. Rax then thinks they are following him in this gondola, as Scott is still trying to untangle this rope. And T-Bob says he can't reach his radio. Well, why can't Scott? Just stop messing with the rope. Anyway, Rax sees a passenger boat ahead now, like this barge, and he gets this idea that he can dive under it, but of course the gondola can't. So we now see Matt and Jacques watching this whole scene from the shore, and Rax does his dive in the Piranha sub as Scott and T-Bob are now barreling towards the other barge with all the people on it. And Scott says, they're going to crash. as we fade out to the dramatic commercial break. So, on to you first. Tell me about your impressions of the first half of the episode.
I think I already know yours, but it's
Maybe.
actually a good story. A little loose, but I could almost see what was going on with the blobs, this leaking fluid that turns everything to gel. That's why I didn't, with the lengthy Scott and T-Bob commercial there. I did see why they were doing it. The seesaw stuff that could have been done different or taken out, but I see why it was there for both comedic value and to illustrate that there's blobs, that it was a trail, although it's never really stated that's how they find them, but there were blobs in the water. The visual effects on Rax's sunglasses was kind of a cool twist, and I liked it. We already know the plot because they're going to use this blob to do something. We don't know what exactly, but they're going to go find something. They're going to use the blob, then try to ruin Matt's day. I wasn't too impressed with the idea that so the Piranha sub is glass. At least the canopy is glass. How do you not see a gondola? I know it's murky. They said it was murky.
Good point.
Tried to give them that little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but come on. You see this big, huge, even a whale right there in your glass. How do you not see it? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I see why they did it. They did it for the rope trick to get to our dramatic commercial break. I got it, but come on. And again, we're looking at this through adult eyes, not kids. So
right.
Right now, I would say that's more of a tick at the moment. So I'm right at a 5. How about you?
Okay. I'm not too far behind. The first thing in my notes that I wrote down for halftime was, holy crap, the puns. I mean, everybody was doing it. Vanessa was making pun jokes, and it got to me by halftime. I'm like, this is more than usual. And usually we get a few in the first half, and I'll get to the point where I'm finally rolling my eyes, and I was rolling my eyes a lot earlier in this episode. But one thing that kind of got to me, like you with the piranha thing, I didn't even think about that. You have that big glass shield, and seeing what's coming up as you're surfacing. But so what I immediately said after they said, go sightseeing. Oh, we're going to rent a boat. Well, why are you renting a boat when T-Bob is a freaking boat?
I thought the same thing, but they are in Italy, so I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're going to go rent the gondola, so I got it.
Yeah, I understand that, to get the full, Italy effect, but they're just, zipping down the canal to start the show, and they're like, you guys are too slow, whatever. And
well,
I
heck,
was like, why would you trade that
the
in
motor,
for a gondola? Yeah, true.
You could have given Scott a better, even more fun ride on a gondola, right to the canals.
So anyway, thinking about that before they even got to that scene just made that scene so much longer. I'm like, I'll just cut all this out. Anyway, like you, I did notice the animation, the reflection in Rax's glasses, which was really fun with Vanessa. I actually just threw a screenshot up there on the Facebook right before we got on, and that was really fun. They really played around with that this episode. But overall, the story seemed to be paced well, and it was obviously going to be Scott and T-Bob are going to be Scott and T-Bob episode. Just kind of there for the humor and to kind of get in the way, which they usually do. They kind of helped the story along a little bit, but it was just basically the jokes that got to me in the first half. So I was irritated enough to knock it down from a 5 to a 4. So I'm only at a 4. I'm 1 point behind you, starting the second half of the episode.
So we return from our commercial break. Thunderhawk transforms and launches into the water and uses the laser cannon to cut the rope. It still has the gondola hit the small boat, but it jumps while they are so happy that What What did I write?
I didn't like this trick. I don't know.
Oh, that's what I thought I
We'll
blundered it.
get
But
to
yeah,
it, but
but while
yeah,
they're so happy to see Dad, that they cut the rope. They still seem to not notice that they're jumping in the air.
right, yeah. It's kind of like slow motion. Oh, thanks, Dad, and psh, splash back in. But
Where's the coyote? Help!
right, yeah, yeah.
Um, well, okay. As they land, T-Bob quips that they cut it pretty close. Back at the dock, Jacques states that it was Piranha that they were, excuse me, playing whale boat with. Mac confirms that Venom is up to something, and he believes that gelled water has something to do with it. Well, no kidding, Sherlock.
Who's now in his flight suit, and Jacques still in his street clothes.
Yeah, I must have found a phone booth.
Yeah, I don't understand. Okay, so you had to fly Thunderhawk, so let's put him in his flight suit now,
That's
real
it.
quick.
So we get I'll call it a 4.9 battle scene here, or call up rather. He goes, satellite link, mass computer, select the best agents for mission in Venice. We get a true, like kind of a true tie-in, but we don't get the orbiting satellite to the.
Yeah, no, that was great. I don't remember them doing this before, where
No.
it faded from the Thunderhawk computer screen to the Boulder Hill computer screen in the
Right.
war room there. So that was really good that it was, essentially linking up,
That's it. But then it goes, yeah, like you said, to the Boulder Hill computer. And then we get Calhoun Burns, specialist in urban environments. Raven is the vehicle, amphibious capability essential for mission location. And he is brushing a horse when the watch goes off with a even worse sound than it's ever been made. Yeah. Then he jumps the stall and leaves. What almost looks like the horse kicked him. I wasn't
It
quite
did.
sure.
Now that would have been funny if he'd been back there. He stopped brushing the horse,
He got booted.
and he gets the call, and he gets he gets kicked out of the stall. Now that would have been fun.
Yep.
But yeah, it looked like he just hopped it.
And then we get Gloria Baker, champion race car driver, black belt in Kung Fu. She gets Shark. The submarine capability gives probable advantage, which is actually a cool way to nomenclate that. And she leaves in the middle of a hair salon while she's getting her hair washed. I'm sure the salon person is like, what your hair's wet. It's all soapy.
Yeah, she got the soap on her face as she gets up.
Yep. So then we get the approval. And then we now pan around Venice, where the bassy Venom theme starts ushering us into the Piranha sub as it's traversing under the water. Rack's radio is stating that the map must be bogus, which he was just instructed that it might not look right,
Right.
Just saying. Except for 1,000-year-old junk. Well, Miles replies that the map was sealed in an urn that was 2,000 years old. It's genuine, since he stole it himself. He instructs him to keep looking. Just then, Rax gets a reading saying it's big and metal and right where Mayhem said it would be. Well, fancy that.
Follow the map, dude.
Yep. Cutting back to the hideout, Rax adds that it must be under the mud. Mayhem instructs him to take a sonograph. I think that's what he said. I reeled that back like 3 or 4 times to try to hear that.
Yeah, that's what he said.
To get the shape of the image under the mud. Back to the nose of the sub, we see what I won't call them lifter rings, but they're faded rings at that.
Sonar waves. Yeah, right. What I call them.
That cuts it to the water's floor. That signal gets sent right back to this large mainframe-looking computer for Venom at their hideout, where Mayhem exclaims that it's as we can. He says that's it, as we see the graphic image of a ship.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put my quotes there. That's what screwed me up. Vanessa seems amazed and states Cleopatra's barge. It really exists. She then asks how it wound up in Italy. Well, Mayhem tells her that it was stolen after Cleopatra's death, but the thieves were lousy sailors and lost it there. Now Vanessa quips it'd be something that Bruno would do.
Yeah,
Bruno replies Bruno replies that it looks like any sunken boat. Then Miles adds that this boat is made of solid gold. And now we come back to Mask.
Right. Matt tells the agents to disperse and watch out for anything venomous. Well, Calhoun says that they'll answer to us if they harm this wonderful city, and announces to everybody to get in their vehicles. I was like, well, you taking over for Matt here, dude, or what?
Well,
But
later on, it kind of takes the girl away,
yeah, well, but of course he makes sure that Gloria gets to go first, ladies
Yep.
first. So she enters Shark, and it converts as she enters the water, and
Well, what I noticed is it kind of prepped itself. So it
the
only brought up
fins.
the
Yeah,
hood fins first, and then she launched it, and then it finally did its final
that's
transformation.
right. That's right. Um, yeah. So then Calhoun says, no. Okay, Calhoun then he calls for his mask inside Raven, and he drives and converts Raven before hitting the water. And then Jock kind of turns to Matt and says he won't be much help in a land vehicle. So Matt tells him just to keep his eyes peeled, and he, he takes off.
I
In
got a question
Thunder
here.
Rock.
We need to ask Bill about.
Okay.
Isn't Raven a bird? So shouldn't
Yeah.
Raven be a jet, not a boat?
True. Yeah, that is kind of weird. I don't know if they just did it because the car is black.
It probably was, but
But
and the
I
funny
understand.
part is the doors flip down, so you'd think it'd be a funky made up jet.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see
Anyway,
that. Good point. Um, so as Matt takes off, we get back to Piranha. There was some good kind of back and forth, I think, in the last half of the episode, and again, just well paced. So we're back to Piranha. Rax has shot explosive harpoons around the surface of the barge in the mud, and Mayhem tells him now to get out of there and tells Bruno to get in position. Well, Bruno drives Stinger towards the water, or Scorpion as it's known in this episode, and says as he gets close to the barge that he is as close to the barge as he can get on land. So then Vanessa loads a canister into her trunk, and Switchblade, we see now, take off, flies overhead in helicopter mode. Mayhem reminds them they have 1 hour to get the barge out before the jelly wears off. And then he calls for his mask. We had except for maybe one time this whole episode, they were calling for their masks, which we don't get a lot of.
Something else that's neat is when he does that, the seatbelt buckles itself.
Yeah, I did see that too. So he got the seatbelt after he got his mask. Anyway, then we're back to Thunderhawk overhead now, and Matt says his bird's eye view is laying an egg. He asks if the other agents have seen anything. Calhoun says nothing unusual on the canals, and Glory reports nothing underneath the water either. Mayhem overhead now has one of the canisters on the skid of Switchblade and begins spraying the water, which of course turns it to jelly. And Raven spots him. Calhoun says he'll go after him, but he quickly gets stuck after that in the jelly. And he then radios that he'll go after him on foot. And he slips as soon as he gets out of the car and says it's more slippery than a banana peel on ice.
Mm-hmm.
So now we cut under the water, and Shark is essentially stuck. And Gloria says she feels like she's inside a gelatin dessert. So she's stuck under the water, and now Matt says Venom is gumming up the works again, and he calls for his mask now. So we get through that scene, and now we are back over to our duo.
Right, where for some reason a coin flies by T-Bob and
He was
lands in the water.
flipping it. He was
was he flipping it? I missed that part.
As they're walking down the street, he's kind of flipping it up in the air.
Completely missed that.
Yeah.
So then T-Bob states that the whole canal is full of gel. He then jumps atop, then slips and falls. Scott gets a laugh while T-Bob states that he may laugh, but he thinks he can extend himself in this situation. Scott suggests that he can give him a ride. His dad didn't say that they could walk on the canal. Of course, he has to find every loophole. Next, we
Yeah.
see Scott riding piggyback atop the gelled canal with T-Bob. We now cut back to Switchblade flying over with Miles stating that every water vehicle in the city is useless. He instructs Scorpion to move in, and we see it transform. He now drives Scorpion onto the gel with Bruno amazed that it worked and he can drive over this stuff. He rushes to the area, instructs Rax to fire the harpoons. Rax responds with a "Roger, heads up out there." Now we see explosives go off underneath, and now it creates this big, huge crater as Switchblade hovers right over it.
I like the animation there too. That was really good, the way the
Yes,
explosion went off.
yes, I agree. He surveys that the gelled water can't go back into the hole. Scorpion extends the claw arm as we see Thunderhawk come into view with Matt stating that he'll add some hot sauce to Venom's pudding. Now, before I go further, I thought he would have lasered the gel and I thought he was going to liquefy it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought was going to happen. Instead, he shoots the lasers at Switchblade and it forces him to evade. Now, Thunderhawk chases while Vanessa flies right behind Thunderhawk and begins blasting away at Matt. Now, Matt quips that the game of tag is turning into leapfrog. Matt now says...
What does that even mean? I don't...
it's not really leapfrog, but okay.
Whatever.
It's tag and tag. I don't... So Matt states that he's got a feeling that he'll be busy for a while. Well, no kidding. He instructs to get to the mouth of the Grand Canal as Venom is digging something up. Calhoun is continuing to slip and replies that he'll get there any year now. Jacques is using the long stick in the gel and says he can't stand sitting around. He states that it's so thick and ponders something while jumping into Volcano. He instructs M.A.S.K and drives onto the gel with a spin out. Then he stops and comments that he'll get on this action yet. Now we cut to Shark.
Yes. Now Gloria gets her mask, no command here.
That's the only
and
one
says,
no command.
That's right. And says, the heck with this. As she opens the driver window and turns on Aura, which shoots like pieces of jelly inside the car. So it's kind of like melting it.
Yeah.
Didn't really connect with me how she got out of here. But anyway, Volcano pulls alongside Raven now. And Jock tells Calhoun he looks like he's on the skid spread. I couldn't understand what he said.
Like he's on the... No, he says, quips that he looks like he's on the skids. That's
okay, whatever. Tells him if he wants a lift, and he gets in. Jacques gets in, or I'm sorry, Calhoun gets in Volcano, and at this time, then we see Shark has somehow made it to the surface, and Gloria is using the Aura mask to melt a walking path, essentially, and this might be the greatest line in the whole series. I loved it. She says she hopes Moses isn't offended as she's parting the jelly there as she's walking along. I thought that was just a very fun line. We get back to Stinger or Scorpion, and Bruno pulls out the barge as Mayhem says, "Hurry," while Vanessa takes care of his masked marauder there. Bruno says it must weigh 50 tons, but slides nicely across the jelly. We cut back to Volcano now, which pulls up next to Gloria, who has her thumb out like a hitchhiker. I thought that was great. And she hops in Volcano. So they're all in Volcano now, except for Matt. And then we cut back to Stinger. Mayhem tells Rax overhead to essentially splice up the barge with his lasers once it reaches the shore. So then they can each haul a piece off. I thought that was interesting. That Rax can slice through like gold. Vanessa is still pursuing Thunderhawk now. Matt flies underneath a bridge, and Vanessa's just had about enough of him. Radios back to Mayhem that she can't stop this maniac, and he's circling back towards Mayhem. Well, Mayhem welcomes him, and this was probably the best part of the episode. Very fun. Mayhem fires his missile from Switchblade, which eventually collides with Thunderhawk's front passenger fender, and that causes Thunderhawk to plummet towards the water. Scott sees the whole thing from down below as he's still riding T-Bob like a horse. Matt says Thunderhawk is about to become a lead balloon, so he better make a splash. And Thunderhawk carves this trench right in front of Stinger as it crashes into the jelly, who is Stinger still dragging that barge behind him and has to go essentially around it. And Matt climbs out of Thunderhawk, and we see Volcano now converting and starting to fire back at Switchblade, and then they're in the heat of battle now. I mean, this was really good at the end here. We see Manta firing back, and Volcano continues to fire. Now we got Rax, who is off the shore there, now shooting at Volcano, and Calhoun takes control of the. This bugged me. I didn't know what in the world he did to make it spin out like that. I mean, he does like about 8 donuts.
Yeah.
And ends up like close to Rax to essentially gun it, and the tires spring the jelly all over Rax. But
right.
That little trick, I don't know if they meant to like say this is the first time Calhoun's ever drove this thing or something, and he can't control it, or why that was the only reason why he could get over to him was to do all those donuts. Anyway, we are now, let's see. So he takes out Rax, and then Matt tells him good job and tells Calhoun to use Gulliver to shrink the barge. Do you want me to finish out, or do you want to?
You got it.
Okay. So Calhoun jumps out, and he uses Gulliver full power on and shrinks the barge, with Bruno kind of ended up being dumbfounded there. Where's the barge? Scott and T-Bob now kind of wander up, and T-Bob, who Scott says moves the fastest on the jelly. Okay.
Could have been in scheme mode this whole time or something.
Right, yeah. Anyway, he crawls up, and Scott snatches the ship and kind of holds it over his head. And Matt wonders where they came from and tells everybody to kind of cover them. So Bruno pulls Stinger around now towards Scott and T-Bob. And Matt takes matters into his own hands here, uses Spectrum Laser to shoot Stinger and disable one of the tank tracks. Mayhem yells, "Blast! They got the barge, and it's a standoff." And he tells everybody, "Let's get out of here," as he drops Switchblade down. So, I don't know why. He drops Switchblade down so Bruno can grab onto the skid. And then they start flying away. And then he converts to jet mode, and he and Manta, who pulls up behind him, jet out of there with Bruno hanging onto the skid. We don't ever know what happened to Rax. He's probably still covered in jelly until it melts, Anyway, and then he can drive away. So as Venom leaves, we cut to later in time, and the agents are now all back on the shore, all their vehicles standing by, and Calhoun uses Gulliver at full power once again to bring the barge back to size. Matt is kind of in awe of the barge and says they'll take it to a nearby Venice museum. And we end the episode with T-Bob quipping, "The schooner the better." This was great. I did like that they groaned at him.
Yes.
We never see that. We never get them just sick of the puns and all that. So this is what kind of saved it for me at the end, as far as T-Bob's jokes just pounding and pounding on me, that they ended on this note where they groan back at T-Bob and fade out. I was like, yes. And then we are now off to our beloved PSA.
And we fade up to T-Bob attempting to lift some weights, which, okay. Scott asks him what he's doing. T-Bob replies that he's exercising since he's decided that he needs to get into better shape. T-Bob adds more weight as Scott states that he'll just wear out his parts. T-Bob refutes it, but we see his arms kind of extended and left extended as Scott states, that if he works out for too long, he can sprain or even injure himself. He has to work up to each level gradually. Then T-Bob can't help himself. He quips that he always has to muscle in, don't you? And that brings us to our rating.
And we get the long arm scratching the head.
Yes, yes. I forgot about that.
Okay, so just from the second half of the episode, I didn't like the rescue after halftime. The logistics were off because as they're leading up to the break, they're really closing in. I mean, it's like they're like right there. And by the time, Matt would get the thing converted and get up into the air, the thing would have already crashed. So the
Right.
timing was a little bit off. And then they had this conveniently placed boat, like empty boat, that they, hit off of to jump up in the air and jump over the passenger boat. I'm like, where'd this boat come from? It's just floating along, man.
I guess, yeah.
So that was kind of a head scratcher that I don't know, that could have, I think, happened a little bit better, but it is what it is. They missed like a pre-selection for Jacques in the call up. Like anytime anybody's on scene, there's usually like Jacques or Bruce pre-selected because they're already there, with their vehicle or whatever. So that was just a little tick, more or less, that they didn't do that they normally do. The fading from the computer screens was great from Thunderhawk back to Boulder Hill. I didn't remember seeing that before. Like you said, they used Rax's glasses a lot. Now, in this one scene, they were reflected the Piranha computer screen going through. I guess when he got that reading that the barge was underwater, they kind of reflected off his glasses again, and that was moving around. So I don't know. I guess the animators that day were like, let's do something with Rax's glasses this episode. And they did it like 3 times. And I don't know if I guess we've kind of seen it before, a couple of little things here and there, the reflection off things. But that was just fun. And then the final battle was actually quite long. I mean, it was a good, I don't know if it was a full battle, but just that final scene of everything kind of coming together, pulling the ship out, and M.A.S.K coming on scene, and it was a good, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 minutes at the end of the episode, and we got plenty of M.A.S.K use. The battle with the vehicles too, and the mortality of the vehicles, like we always say. So we like seeing stuff happen to them. They're not impenetrable. They don't have Kit's molecular bonded shell. They can actually get hit. People can get hurt, and we just like the realism of that, more or less, over Matt being the all-knowing, all-powerful, use my M.A.S.K when in any situation I've got a solution type character. So I did enjoy that, but overall I was kind of trying to bump it up a little bit to maybe get that 4.5 and go to 5, but I ended up voting for a 4. But I think it was a pretty solid episode overall. I liked the pacing throughout. It went by pretty quick. It wasn't dragging or anything. And even though we didn't get the call up until after halftime, I thought it still kind of worked. So what about you, sir? Tell me what you landed on.
I thought it was a lot better episode than we've seen for a little bit. We, like, you pretty much hit on everything. We got a much better call up, minus a couple things, but still, it was a lot better than what we've had. A lot more M.A.S.K, a lot more vehicle usage than we've seen. Also, it's usually just the vehicles. Very little M.A.S.K usage of anything. To me, the animation was pretty good.
It was, yeah.
Well, even with them launching off the dock for M.A.S.K, it was actually pretty good. And obviously, we've already talked a lot about Rax's sunglasses. That was good. The kind of suspense, if you will, of getting stuck or slipping on the gel, I thought it was actually kind of comical, for some of it. And I get, even though it was drawn out with duo in the first half, I got why they did it, why they used the gel, why they got the stick stuck in the gel.
Yeah.
Using the gel to steal this golden barge, pretty clever.
Yeah, it was an interesting. I mean, that was you don't typically. There's really nothing to compare it to. The
No,
water turning to gel and using that to your advantage to get land vehicles on water. To get down to the bottom instead of just using a sub or something.
right.
Yeah, it was pretty clever.
The battle was good. Again, got to see a lot of drama there. You've pretty much touched on it, and you just even said about we get to see the impact, the the fragileness of the vehicles with Thunderhawk, especially getting hit and going down. I thought they were going to destroy it and come up with Thunderhawk 3, actually.
Well,
Or,
and that was neat. Just the way that they. Okay, so we're gonna shoot down Thunderhawk this episode. How can we use that to our benefit? Well, that was great. He just made a trench all the way right in front of the path of Scorpion or Stinger
right,
there, and I just thought that was really well thought out
I agree.
as compared to some episodes where it's just what are you guys thinking? But yeah, that was good.
The mass commands minus Gloria's was pretty cool with the added little seat belt thing for Switchblade. Um, I was off and on about the jokes. There were times where I felt like it was too much, like you usually do, um, but they were okay. Um, my markdowns was that awful freaking. They can't figure out which alarm to use for the mask watch. I did mark them down for that because they know what it is. Why do they keep changing it? It has to be like a new audio guy that just every time a new episode. Oh yeah, we gotta. Oh, we'll just use this one.
Well,
I'm waiting for the Star Trek Red Alert to come through next.
well, like we talked about in our least and favorite episodes with Bill, we don't know the actual order of these episodes that were produced. I mean,
Very
there
true.
we we've noticed different things from episode to episode. So it could be that they filmed or produced 20 or 25 episodes with that sound effect, and as they went into the next 20 or 25 episodes, they tried something new, but they're all kind of interspersed together, and it's
That's it.
not a like a chronological order of how they produced them. So I think there's some of that mixed in with our numbering versus how they produced it. So, but it's just unfortunate. It's annoying when you go from episode to episode and you're expecting one thing and you hear another. So,
Exactly. And the last thing is the PSA didn't connect with the episode. Um,
right,
as more of a tick, but it's becoming commonplace where they
right,
don't connect it anymore. Overall, I was right at a solid 4.5, but I'm going to round up. I think it's a 5.
okay,
And that leads us to our poll.
right. And over on our polls, we had, let's see, 13 votes. 9 of those were for 4, and we had 2 5s, 2 3s. So overall, it sounds like everybody thought this was a pretty good, solid episode. Not any, bottom of the barrel stuff there.
Right.
And we had 3 comments.
One from Decker. So I was at a 3.5, but rounded down to a 3. Things I loved. The masks were actually used to resolve the plot. I also liked Calhoun driving Volcano while Jacques manned the turret. Gloria making the hitchhiking gesture was pretty funny. Mayhem's joke about the stealing the map himself was pretty funny. Things I didn't like. The plot was making the water gel was pretty far fetched. I also don't think the computer selected Jock and Matt didn't pre select him. Also,
Mm-hmm.
Matt quick changes into his Thunderhawk outfit while Jacques remained in his civilian clothes. Also, the PSA didn't match the episode. It should have been about the hydrating while you're exercising. But I enjoyed it, except for poor Jacques who felt tacked on. It's a good observation. He was trying every which way, just like, what am I going to do? I can't do anything.
That's right.
But we see he, helped out in the end. And that takes
Yeah.
us to our good friend Anna.
Yes. Anna says, this is a cool episode with some good battle scenes. Among several positive things was that a good explanation was given for the choice of the vehicles for Shark and Raven, their amphibious and submarine capabilities. In addition, I really enjoyed the scenes with Venom this time. I loved the map and its historical background, and I thought it was really cool that Venice didn't even exist when it was written. I liked the humor of Venom's bickering. I thought it would made a nice change that an entire scene was seen at least partly from Rex's point of view. Yeah, I mean where he's kind of off on his own down there,
right,
on the sub trying to complete the mission. In other words, she continues. There's also some good animation with the reflection in Rex's glasses. First of Vanessa's face and later of the water when he's driving in the canal. Also liked the way Stinger was used. However, I found it very unlikely that Scott and T-Bob would land so perfectly in the water after the rope was cut when they were about to crash and they were sent flying into the air. Yeah, that was
yep.
I don't know. I didn't really care for that scene altogether, but yeah, I didn't. They just weren't. I don't know. The even the at the end when Scott's riding them around and they just happen to walk up and grab the barge themselves. They didn't need to do that. They could have had somebody else grab it or whatever. Didn't need to essentially be there, but that's what they do. They they get in harm's way, right?
Right.
And that's always part of the episode. So good points there from Anna. And we've got one comment left from Shopping Simon.
Right. It was a very good episode. I gave it 4 points. It was very entertaining to watch Venom search for Cleopatra's barge and extract it from the canal. And then there was there was a lot of fighting with M.A.S.K. This episode also had 3 of the new vehicles: Volcano, Stinger, and Raven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of this Series 2 vehicles
Yep.
that came out. And that's what I was thinking too, like, because the vehicles, the second batch, I was thinking came out in 86. So they were, essentially using what they knew from probably, the animation, whatever the producers were telling them about the vehicles and things. So, yeah, it's interesting that while we're in season 1 of M.A.S.K, before we get to the racing season, they're still kind of split up with the quote unquote new vehicles with Volcano and Stinger and Raven and Slingshot and those second series vehicles being in there versus the original release of the toys. So
Right.
it's funny how it's kind of split up that way. Okay, so next up we have finished season 6 of MASKast, episodes 51 to 60. So as we normally do, we're going to go back and take a look at each of those episodes, what we rated them. We're going to just basically give you an overview as we do before we get on to the last mini season here of the season 1 of MASKast, or season 1 of the animated series. So we're going to go over episodes 51 to 60 and just do a basic overall review and compare those 10 episodes to previous seasons. Always fun to take a look at that and see which ones kind of come out on top and everything. And then once we do our overview, then we're going to do 61 to 65. That will kind of finish the M.A.S.K animated series season 1 before we jump into the 10 racing episodes. So we're getting there, man.
We
15 episodes left to watch.
That's it.
And review. So it's been a really fun journey, and I look forward to finishing them up.
Same here. And as we say that, we're closing out for another episode of MASKast, and we want to invite you once again to join us on Agents of M.A.S.K and follow us on our social media sites, and continue to give us your input on on the episodes or anything related to Mask. We follow a lot of people out there, good fans.
Mhm.
We've actually seen a few join the community recently. They have their own podcast and so forth. But
Yep.
this is great. There's a bigger fan base building as we keep going, and it's great. So anyway, on behalf of Jason, I'm Wyatt, and thanks for watching and listening to us here on MASKast.